Good afternoon, YouTube. Those in my trucking community, those who are not, welcome. I'm gonna have a little rant this afternoon about hours of service. Not particularly a rant about hours of service. I mean, because they're hours of service. What is my rant going to do about them? Nothing. But I, of course, have other YouTubers that I watch. And some of them are, of course, in the trucking industry. And I recently watched a video from a couple of YouTubers whom I've watched several videos from, and they put out some information as far as hours of service goes. Little information for people coming into the industry, new people in the industry, and or people who are not part of the industry but just like to have a little bit of information as far as understanding why we do what we do, what it's like to be in this big box going down the road, what happens in your day. Because, I mean, let's face it, if you're not in, around, or part of the trucking industry, you probably have no idea what hours of service is. Your job probably consists of punching a clock. Well, ours does too, to a point. Not exactly the same. We are regulated under the hours of service by the FMCSA. Our policing force is the DOT. They're the ones who stop trucks and look at logbooks, look at safety, look at everything to do with the truck, the load, the driver, and yeah. So, hours of service. They, and I'll reference them for what the information they put out to say what was wrong with it. I'm not going to call them out. They're decent people, or so they seem on YouTube. Never met them in person. Odds are probably never will. Uh, Not going to embarrass them, not going to call them out, nothing like that. I will say that they've been in the trucking industry for a few years. Um, and from what I understand, they've only ever operated under electronic logs. Well, therein lies part of the issue. Um, in order to truly understand logs, you need to be able to understand how to calculate all of it. Well, if you've never run paper logs or been through a paper log class, which I still think they're required everywhere or should be required everywhere, because if your little box over there goes out, you're still supposed to use a paper log for up to 8 days in a 21-day period or whatever that rule is. I mean, yeah. So they said you can only drive 11 hours in a 24-hour period or in a day. That is false. They said you can only work 14 hours in a 24-hour period or in a day. That is also false. You can only drive up to 11 hours following a 10-hour rest period. And we'll say rest period, but it could be, depending on what area of trucking you're in, depending on sleeper cab operation, day cab operation, such. It's team operation. It could be any of the combination of off duty time, sleeper berth time, split sleeper berth time, depending. That's a whole another conversation in itself. But you can only drive up to 11 hours following a 10-hour rest break. Not to exceed your 14th hour of working, and only if you've had a at least 30-minute rest break within the last 8 hours. So, to simplify it a little bit, even though it's a little hard to follow, maybe, if you're not, part of it, start your day, you have to take a break before your 8th hour in order to keep driving. Caveat, in order to keep driving. You can work, we'll go to that again. You can work as many hours as you need to, require to, want to, whatever. You just can't drive beyond the hours that are regulated by the FMCSA, because that's what the FMCSA regulates. FMCSA regulates hours of service. Hours of service are what's regulated. That's all. That's all they care about. They care about the movement of the big wheels on the big box going down the road and what kind of impact it could or couldn't have on the motoring public. That's all they regulate. Your working hours have no regulation. We, as truck drivers, as the trucking industry, as the community, however you want to label it, are not regulated under the same hours as typical factory workers, construction workers, food service workers, whatever. There's no requirements for how many hours we can or can't work like there are for those industries. There is no requirements for minimum wage in the trucking industry. There are no requirements for overtime in the trucking industry. We are based on hours of service by the FMCSA for drive time. Yes, there are rules for working hours, but those rules for working hours always just dictate our driving time. They don't dictate our working time. You can work as much as humanly possible. You just can't drive until you've had the required breaks or beyond the allotted hours. They stated, they did change a little bit at the end, I'll give them that you have to take a 34-hour reset every week or to gain hours back, which is not true. Our hours of service are typically for most of the trucking industry, because most of the trucking industry is operated on a 7-day work schedule. So because we work 7 days a week, the hours of service are 70 hours in 8 days. or 8 and 3/4 hours every day. Okay, so I know I've been a little long-winded, and I'm gonna try to end this quickly, I guess. Thanks for listening. If you listened this long, um, hope you'll subscribe. Yeah, I'm kind of new to this whole vlogging thing, to YouTube. Um, say hi, whatever. If you're new to the trucking industry, I will try to have more things, tips, tricks that might be helpful to you because I know I need them. I'm sure you'll need them too. Have a nice day.